What is going on, guys? Thank you so much for stopping by the channel today. I got a little bit extra for you on your Monday, June 14th, 2021. This is Off the Scripts. It was confirmed this morning that Samoa Joe is back in WWE. Whether you are a fan of Joe or not, WWE or not, whether you like this decision or not, I'm gonna break it down for you, whether you like it or not, here today. I also got news on Aleister Black and Braun Strowman. What are the feelers coming from AEW? And Mark Henry seemingly is involved on potentially bringing in Braun Strowman to AEW. Please step away and get back to your little podcast over there on Sirius XM satellite radio, okay? We don't need you to do anything to break AEW. And news on an Evolution 2, the real reason, as if you guys give a shit, about why there won't be another all-women's pay-per-view in WWE, which right now, in my honest opinion, would be a complete pathetic waste of time. We're going to go over all this today on Off the Script Extra, man. Thank you so much for joining me. Follow me on social media at JD from NY206. That's the Twitter and Instagram. Hit that subscribe button down below, and I want you guys to give that thumbs up and Aleister Black Mass. Hit that thumbs up, and let's try for 1,000 on today's OTS Extra. And if you missed any of the other content on the channel, the homepage of this very channel is where you're going to find literally everything. Monday Night Raw, NXT from last week, Friday Night SmackDown, and Friday Night Dynamite rolled into one big post show. Off the Script on Saturday, episode 380, and we were live last night for TakeOver in your house. Go check all that stuff out. If you didn't, it's on the homepage right now. Samoa Joe. I woke up this morning to news of Samoa Joe seemingly being confirmed to return to the WWE, and it's coming from Mike Johnson and PW Insider. There's no reason not to believe Mike Johnson of PW Insider. He's one of the more reputable sources in the entire community. I don't think he's going to put this out there and then have it be wrong. Now, if you guys watched NXT TakeOver in your house last night, the final scene of the show was William Regal saying that change may be needed in NXT simply because he can't handle it and it's too much bedlam that he's ever seen. More bedlam than he's ever seen before. Too much for him to handle by himself. That was the cliffhanger going into Tuesday's episode of NXT this week. Everybody was expecting Samoa Joe to come out after the Fatal 5-Way to confront Karrion Kross. I'm going to go over why I don't think that's a good idea, or why I wish that wouldn't happen. Thank God it didn't. But everybody was anticipating Samoa Joe coming out and confronting Karrion Kross after the NXT Championship Fatal 5-Way that saw him retain over Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano, Kyle O'Reilly, and Pete Dunne. Samoa Joe is back. Samoa Joe is back. He is returning to the WWE, and this was confirmed by Mike Johnson of PW Insider and then Dave Meltzer as well. Triple H was actually eager to bring Samoa Joe back to NXT after WWE released him from the main roster. There have been rumblings in the last week that Samoa Joe could be brought back. Not only Joe, but Aleister Black's name was mentioned as well. Brought back to NXT after the company released him back in April due to quote-unquote budget cuts. Dave Meltzer confirmed on today's Wrestling Observer Radio that Joe is returning to the company. There's speculation as to what his role could be in NXT. PW Insider provided some additional details on Samoa Joe coming back to WWE to work exclusively for the NXT brand. They say it is said that Triple H snatched him back as soon as possible because Triple H was not happy that WWE released Joe and wanted him back in NXT as opposed to being elsewhere outside of the company. Sounds like the AEW effect to me, folks. Triple H didn't want Samoa Joe going to All Elite Wrestling. This makes sense as Triple H was the person who initially brought Joe into WWE in 2015, set him up in NXT. Up until that point, WWE officials had absolutely no interest in signing Samoa Joe until Triple H said, I'm going to go out and bring this guy in. And clearly that was even more apparent on the main roster, as they had no desire to push Samoa Joe on the main roster, but called him up anyway to do virtually nothing with him at all. Originally, it was believed that Joe would just work in NXT, and there were no plans to bring him up to the main roster. So much so that Joe got a unique deal where he was able to continue working independent dates while also working in NXT. That led him to getting a traditional exclusive deal with WWE, where he later became a top star and the NXT champion on Wednesday nights while they were on WWE Network. Joe wasn't somebody that WWE wanted. Triple H made him a desirable act and one of the more must-see acts in WWE in recent memory. Joe hasn't wrestled since February 2020 due to a history of concussions. While he was at the Performance Center at least once in the recent weeks leading up to today, he did not take any bumps. Now, the role for Samoa Joe, seemingly that he is now back in NXT. Spoiler on future plans. I think a lot of us in the IWC have been mulling over ideas as to what NXT is going to do with Samoa Joe, based on the rumors that Joe is back. And with Joe being at the Performance Center this past week, Regal's statement at the end of TakeOver in Your House fueled speculation that he would be replaced by Samoa Joe in a GM role, a general manager role. Dave Meltzer noted on the Observer Live that Joe is back with the company and he's likely the candidate to come into an NXT commissioner role. Meltzer says this, and I quote, "So I think that's the cue for Samoa Joe. I don't know that 100%. I was told today that Samoa Joe is in a Regal-like role, and all of a sudden Regal is talking like he's stepping down. So maybe the Regal-like role is Regal's role. But if he's leaving, based on what I was told, Samoa Joe is definitely the favorite to be the new commissioner/GM. Joe is in, and he's a non-wrestler. So I think that tells you where he is going to be and the fact that he's not cleared. Even so, if he went to another company, if he's not medically cleared, it is what it is. He's taking a job with NXT, and he's going to be the new authority figure on television from what we've seen so far with William Regal coming out of NXT TakeOver. Now, Joe was one of the names, like I said, that was released on August 15th due to budget cuts. So I guess the budget must be all right for WWE and Triple H to make a decision on bringing Samoa Joe back to the company, which I find very, very funny. Now, I mentioned this last night on the podcast. I mentioned it on the live stream for TakeOver in Your House. I am just happy to see Joe. I want to see Joe in a big role. Now, a lot of people were talking about bringing him on in and having him confront Karrion Kross, and some people in the community, many people in the community, as a matter of fact, were booking Samoa Joe to go one-on-one with Kross and have him beat Kross for the NXT title, and then Kross goes up to get demoted to the main roster. I don't necessarily think that's a good idea. In fact, I think that's a terrible idea. I don't think Samoa Joe should be the guy to beat Karrion Kross, okay? Number one, and there's 2 points I want to make as far as him challenging Karrion Kross. Number one, if Kross loses, it diminishes everything that WWE has done to build up Kross as a monster. You don't want Kross to lose. Now, they didn't do themselves any favors last night after he beat the Mount Rushmore, as Kross called it, of NXT's main event scene. Johnny Gargano, Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, which I don't even think he should have been there, and Pete Dunne. I don't think any of them really should have been there. None of them really made sense. It was just a match thrown together to pretty much build up Cross even further and throw a wrench into that predictability factor, because if you put Cross against any one of them one-on-one, it would have been a slaughter against any one of those guys. None of them would be believable, even though Cole and Gargano, I love both of those guys dearly, even those guys would not have stood up to Cross in a legitimate way. I don't necessarily think Cross losing is a good idea. Now, Asuka, she relinquished the title for whatever reason. I forgot what the reason was, whether it was her being injured or whatnot. She eventually made the downgrade. I was going to say the downgrade to the main roster, but she went up there undefeated, which gave WWE all the fuel to ruin that and have her lose to Charlotte, which should have never been. But she went up to the main roster, and she was undefeated. Cross should do the same thing. Now, I think bringing in Joe to beat Cross is a terrible idea because, like I said, it would diminish everything that Triple H has done with Karrion Kross. If Cross is going to be this big monster guy, you want him to go into his next brand or on his next brand as that same dominant character that we see in NXT. I don't necessarily think anybody beating Cross is going to be bigger for it. You have to worry about Cross now and make him a priority. If that is what you've done so far, you got to continue building upon that. You just can't give it up because he has to get demoted and he has to drop the title. Now, if you put it on Samoa Joe, how is that going to work out? How is that legitimately going to work out? Triple H is not about bringing in somebody like Joe and automatically putting him in a transitional champion role. He's not about to bring in Samoa Joe and bring him in to make him champion over everybody else. First of all, it's a conflict of interest. You can't bring in somebody because you missed them dearly, thought that it was a mistake to let them go, and then give them the fucking world because you should have never released them in the first place. You can't do that. There are people there that have worked their ass off to get to that position. You can't bring in somebody that was let go, that the company found no value in, and make him a world champion. Secondly, additionally, if you beat Cross and put it on Joe, aren't you back in the same boat that you were in with Karrion Kross as world champion? Who on that roster right now in that main event scene? I'm not saying that there is nobody on the roster that can beat Joe, but right now in that main event scene, who do you think is going to beat Samoa Joe? The guy is a badass motherfucker. If you're bringing him in to beat Kross, then you're pretty much labeling him the next Karrion Kross. If he beats Kross, why are you going to put somebody in that position that is pretty much going to be labeled unbeatable? If he beats the unbeatable, that makes him unbeatable. You don't want to be back in the same boat with Samoa Joe being a guy that everybody else on the roster is not going to measure up to and be legitimate against. So it is not going to work in that way at all. This is why I find it very weird that people in the IWC are claiming that they want Joe to come on in and wrestle and beat Karrion Kross. The only one that could beat Kross on that roster is Walter. I don't think that they're going to do that. They're not going to do it. Even though I wish they would, even though I'd love to see it, even though I'd like to see Walter as a double champion, I don't think that's going to happen. Even though it is something that makes all the sense in the world. Then Kross could go up. Now, I just got done saying I don't want to see Kross lose, but if he was to lose to one guy, Walter is the only guy on that roster that could do it legitimately and believably. Bronson Reed could be the guy, but he's the North American champion. He just won the championship, and I don't think he's at that level yet where you're going to put him against Kross and make him the face of the brand. You are in a situation where your back is against the wall. So what do? Samoa Joe's coming on in, more than likely to be the GM. I don't necessarily think making him the full-blown GM is the right thing. I love William Regal. They have made William Regal the most beloved GM in the modern era. He's there, he books the shit. He's never a guy that overshadows characters on the show or overshadows the brand. He's always there. You know he's there. You know he's physically about booking matches. But he's never on screen. He's never in an on-air role where you see an overwhelming, William Regal agenda on the show. I think it's been booked perfectly for as long as William Regal's been a part of NXT. Triple H was in the conference call after the show was over and said William Regal is somebody that is ingrained in everything that we do here. Matt Bloom, Triple H, Sarah Amato, they're all there. They're all there. William Regal is a part of the machine that has built NXT. He is always going to be part of Tuesday night. Now, I don't know how that was meant. He could be a part of Tuesday night, but more in a backstage role, and we don't see him on TV anymore. He could be a part of NXT and take a reduced role as the commissioner. He could still be the commissioner or the GM on NXT, and he could now just hire Samoa Joe as a body, as a muscle to back him up, to aid him in cleaning up this mess on Tuesday night. It could be a situation where Regal is still the GM, but he hires a body, like Samoa Joe, to come on in and clean up all this mess that apparently is causing bedlam, which I would hope is the right way to go about it. I think that's the best way to go about it. Making Samoa Joe the GM, I don't necessarily think that's a good idea. I'm not going to complain if we get it, because Joe is always a welcome sight on television, and man, does he have a voice on him, and he's got mic skills that command your attention. Now, I do think that this is exciting. I do. And a lot of people are claiming, well, let's have him beat Cross. No. Then people on the other side are, I don't want to see him as a GM. But Samoa Joe, in any way you look at it, is money. Samoa Joe is money. WWE has not cleared Samoa Joe. We don't know what Samoa Joe's medical history is. Samoa Joe may have been released, and he may have inquired about joining an AEW or joining another organization to go and wrestle. Maybe they didn't clear him as well. We don't know. And additionally, it's none of our business. Maybe Joe did talk to Tony Khan. Maybe Tony Khan and his medical team didn't clear Samoa Joe. So what does that leave Samoa Joe left with? You're going to go to Impact Wrestling to do what? If I was to choose between NXT and Impact Wrestling, I'm certainly choosing the comfort of NXT and Triple H on Tuesday night. Because if Joe can't wrestle, why would he go to Impact? If Joe can't wrestle, why would he go to AEW? They don't need a Joe that can't wrestle. Tony Khan doesn't need Samoa Joe in a talking role. They already have a lot of people in that role. They got a Big Show. They got a Vicky Guerrero. They got Mark Henry now coming on in. They don't need any more quote-unquote WWE legends to come on into the company and be a talking stick. Joe might have been only left with NXT, and that was it. And if that's a decision that he made, that's the best decision for him right now, based on what we know and what we don't know about his medical history. So I don't know why people are getting upset about Joe signing with NXT. We don't know. All I know is I think a GM role is a mistake. I do think Samoa Joe, if he's a GM, he may be somebody that overshadows everybody on the NXT roster. Is he going to be booked, if so, a GM? Is he going to be booked like William Regal and make sporadic appearances once in a blue? You don't want Samoa Joe to make sporadic once in a blue appearances. That's somebody you want on your TV every fucking week. But that goes against how NXT's booked general managers. This is why I'm predicting that I think William Regal stays in charge. He didn't really give any indication that he's walking away. He said changes need to be made. He's been doing this job by himself for how long now? The change could be, I need help. The help that I'm going out to get is a former NXT champion. That former NXT champion is Samoa Joe. Now I want to see you fuck with me and my show. Because Karrion Kross on Tuesday night on the Go Home Show said that this is not William Regal's show, this is his show. Because he's the champion. William Regal never gave any indication about him walking away. I think the best thing, now that we know this is confirmed, I think the best thing for Samoa Joe is to be a body, a muscle for William Regal, and that is it. But I don't necessarily think keeping him off television every single week is a good thing. I want to see more of him. I hope that maybe we get him to wrestle. Maybe. But I'm glad that he's healthy. I'm glad that Triple H saw value in him to bring him on back. Again, we don't know his medical history. Maybe the other companies like an AEW wanted him, but what are they going to do with him if he can't wrestle? If WWE didn't clear him, more than likely AEW's not going to clear him. He does have a history of injuries and concussions. Maybe they saw the same thing that WWE said and said, you know what, we want you, but we don't want to bring you in right now because we can't clear you. You want to go and do what you want to do? Go and sign with NXT. You have our full blessing. He made a decision that was best for himself in the moment that they offered him another position, and that's what he did. We should all sit back as fans and enjoy Joe on television because Joe is fucking money. You are not going to be disappointed in anything Samoa Joe does on television, whether it's a GM, a commissioner, a body, a muscle, or in the ring. I don't necessarily think Joe should come on in and beat Cross. That's a terrible idea. You got to protect Cross at all costs. If that is what you've done, then you should continue doing that. You can't bring someone in and fuck that up. He's special in NXT. He's got the vibe of a monster in NXT. You continue to do that until he makes the main roster. And even then, he continues to dominate. That's how you build stars. Everybody's complaining that he's boring, Cross. I don't know why you're complaining he's boring. It's like watching Roman Reigns win every fucking week. Is Roman Reigns boring? Seems like they're taking the Roman Reigns route with Karrion Kross. And if you got more than one Roman Reigns on your roster, then that means you're doing one thing, folks. You're creating stars. So spare me Kross is boring. Give me a break. I can name quite a few people that are more boring than Karrion Kross. The future WWE champion, Drew McIntyre, is one of them. Those are my thoughts on Samoa Joe. Let me know what you guys think about all of this down below in the comments section. Sound off. Let me know what you think. Moving on with the next story, man. Interest level in Aleister Black and Braun Strowman from AEW. As we all know, Braun Strowman was released. He was making a $1.2 million per year deal for WWE. He was released simply because of budget cuts, I'm sure. AEW could be interested in him, and Mark Henry said that there is interest from both sides. I don't know if that's legitimate or if Mark Henry's bullshitting, but if I'm AEW, I am passing 1,000% on Braun Strowman. AEW already wanted Tommy End. That was already established. Aleister Black, the former Aleister Black, I should say, could have one dream match after another in AEW, including Andrade, again, Kenny Omega, you name it. Pentagon, Phoenix, Jungle Boy, Miro, the list goes on and on. Lance Archer. There's no shortage of opponents for Tommy End in AEW. During Observer Radio, Meltzer brought up the situation. He said, the interesting part is that Strowman doesn't fit the mold of who AEW fans typically want to see. On the other hand, Tommy End is exactly who AEW fans want to see. He says this, and I quote, I know AEW is interested in Tommy End, but I know anyone else for sure. Strowman is the weird one because it's like, number one, to get him, it's going to take a lot of money. Number two, he is a big star and people know who he is, but he's not going to be a needle mover whatsoever because he wasn't a needle mover in WWE, and he's 2 years past his peak as an attraction. Yes, when you go to a new company, it's a fresh face and you're bringing in someone new, but all I think about when you put Strowman in AEW is that it's exactly the kind of guy that AEW fans don't want to see. End quote. I mean, I don't know what else to add on top of what Meltzer said. He said it beautifully. For all the shit that Dave Meltzer gets, this is a spot-on 100% opinion on Braun Strowman. That is factual information. Braun Strowman's not a needle mover. Why would you bring him on? You want to alienate your fans? Then bring Braun Strowman in. You want your brand to be the landfill of WWE quote-unquote rejects? Bring in Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman, he's got a very, very short leash in AEW. Matches against who? Exactly. Brian Cage, Lance Archer, Wardlow. Not really many. Adam Page, maybe. Not many in AEW that I even care to see in the ring with Braun Strowman. And when he's in the ring with a smaller guy, I don't necessarily care to see that. He wasn't a needle mover on WWE Raw. He wasn't a great champion by any means in any situation. WWE had him and they fucked him up. He's not even 2 years past his peak. I'd say he's 3-4 years past his peak. What would he do on AEW that he didn't do on WWE? How would you book him on AEW compared to what he was doing on WWE television? People were changing the channel when he was on Raw. So fade. You want to see that on AEW? This is what you want to see on AEW. And then Mark Henry is saying that there's interest from both sides. Who says? Are you in direct communication with Tony Khan about the business handlings of AEW? Or are you trying to vouch for your friend and you're putting good vibes out there for the people to willingly accept Braun Strowman because you think that they should? I don't necessarily think Braun Strowman is a good fit for AEW at all. It's not a good fit for anybody, really, but WWE. What I do think happens is Braun Strowman waits for his 90 days to be up, and WWE brings him back, puts him on the main roster with a much lighter contract signed for less money. That's it. He doesn't fit AEW, he doesn't fit Impact, he doesn't fit New Japan. Where's he gonna go? Unless he gives up pro wrestling completely. Braun Strowman is a complete waste of a signing for AEW. Aleister Black, on the other hand, I read that it's already a done deal. When his 90 days is up, he's going right there to AEW, and he is excited. Merchandise is on fire. He's obviously now talking about the creative mishaps in WWE. He's looking to correct that. Most of his dream matchups right now in the world of pro wrestling are mostly AEW wrestlers. Where exactly do you think he's going? Just like Andrade when he was released. Tony Khan was all over that immediately. Tony Khan is already in the year of Aleister Black, Tommy End, and when you see those 90 days up, I would not be surprised to see him Labor Day weekend at All Out in Chicago. That's where he's going. Fans don't want Strowman. Fans want guys like Tommy End. We have enough Braun Strowmans that you need to build to make into the next big thing in pro wrestling. Make Wardlow your project instead of bringing someone on in that's less talented. Wardlow's a better talker. Wardlow's a better wrestler than Braun Strowman. I'd rather see Wardlow get that money and get that opportunity on AEW. You got your Lance Archers, you got your Brian Cages, you got your Will Hobbs. Those are the guys you need to build. You don't need an overabundance of big guys. You got a nice group of big guys that you could be putting resources in instead of giving those resources to somebody that is half of what they are. Fuck Braun Strowman. Guy would be a complete waste to anybody and a waste of money. Never mind roster space, a waste of money to bring him on into AEW. Evolution 2. Being that Mickie James is now leading and spearheading not an AEW, but an NWA. AEW is going to be part of it. An NWA all-women's pay-per-view called Empower. 3 R's, not 1. There's talk about an Evolution 2. Is WWE going to do another all-women's pay-per-view? Triple H made comments, it's not necessary right now, yada, yada, yada. You know his comments from the conference call. We talked about it on episode 380 of the podcast on Saturday, so make sure you guys go and check that out. Meltzer explained WWE's mindset on the matter, and they don't understand why they should continue to put on Evolution shows if the first one really wasn't a hit with fans, especially considering how hard they pushed it. Evolution, the first one, was an agenda. Without Ronda Rousey, that pay-per-view is not happening. I'm sorry to burst your fucking female bubbles. Without Ronda Rousey on that roster, there's no way in hell that Evolution pay-per-view is happening. None. You ain't selling out that fucking venue with Nikki Bella. You ain't selling out that venue with Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch and a fucking Mae Young Classic final. WWE did none of those matches. It was pretty much booked in 2 weeks, that entire show. Yet you were asking fans to come out and support women's wrestling. Meanwhile, you put nothing into that show and built the entire show off of an agenda and off of a make-believe revolution that you put together. But the revolution only lasted 1 year. It only lasted 1 year. If it was such a revolution, then it would have continued on after Ronda Rousey and after Becky Lynch. And now look at where we are with women's wrestling. It may be worse than any other year we have seen in the last 7 years. What you're watching on Raw and what you're watching on SmackDown right now may be the worst we've seen it since the debut and the retirement of the Divas Championship and the debut of the Women's Championship in WWE. Those are stone cold facts right there, folks. Evolution 2 would be a complete waste of time. If they can't book weekly television, you're going to ask them to book an Evolution show? I would rather them just go out and do another Mae Young Classic. Fucking Evolution 2. It didn't flop selling tickets, but it was tougher than most. The number of people who watched, and they promoted it hard, was still lower than most. It was not the worst that year, no, but it was on the low end. Their mentality is, why add the pay-per-view when it isn't a big hit? But of the B shows, they pushed it harder than them all. Of course, because it was filled with all women's matches. I mean, they did so much promotion for that thing for it to be at a new level, a new low level. For the promotion they put into it, it did not go well. Another reason why that show only happened, folks, is because everybody made a big deal about WWE going to Saudi Arabia, and the women were not allowed on the show because we can't have all men shows because then it's going to fit into the feminists' agenda. That's the reason why it happened as well, because everybody made a big stink that women weren't allowed to wrestle in Saudi Arabia. How could WWE go into Saudi Arabia and not lobby and push for women's matches, not knowing that it's their rules over there? They don't allow that type of shit to happen over there. You ain't gonna tell them what to do. So WWE, to shut everybody up, on top of promoting the agenda of the evolution and the revolution of women's wrestling, WWE, they appeased all of these fucking crybabies on social media and gave them an all-women show to offset the Saudi Arabia show that happened that same year. Evolution 2 would be a complete failure. And the only reason why you would be doing it is to fit yet another political agenda. To fucking shut the crybabies up that somehow think a women's pay-per-view is going to be a big deal. It's not. It's not. If they can't book their weekly television shows the way that they should, why are you going to ask them to go out and book an entire show of women's matches that mean absolutely nothing? Nothing. Your women's championships now mean nothing. You're going to put them on a fucking show and showcase them to who? How important are they going to be? If you're going to book a show, make it dream matches. Have fun with it. But WWE's in the business of not having fun. Give me 5 weeks. I could book an Evolution show better than the fucking geeks that run this goddamn company. I'm getting out of here, guys. Thank you so very much for tuning into this Off the Script Extra. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and leave me a comment down below. All of that helps out the channel and the video tremendously. Make sure you guys follow me on social media at JD from NY206. That's Twitter and Instagram. And go check all the other videos if you missed any of the content already on the channel, including last night's NXT TakeOver in your house post-show right here on OTS. I will see you guys tonight for Monday Night Raw. If I'm not half asleep, I'll be live on YouTube. Make sure you guys check the notification that goes up later and join me inside the venue for the post-show of Monday Night Raw right here on OTS. Until then, take care, guys. Have a great Monday, and I will see you tonight for really awful wrestling.